Okay, good evening, everyone. As we welcome in Baruch Ian and Yitzi Muller, Irving Fishbaum, Eddie Chazan, Bruce Eisenberg, A.B. Spry, Avi Ament, Dr. Block, Nachman Chapler, Aaron Slade. And we welcome in Mordechai Sultan, Yisrael Fisher, Ilya Shutman, Moshe Lehman, Menachem Yemansky, Naftali Jablin, Abe Arbach, Dr. Guy, Moshe Lehman, and what's his name has arrived.
What's his name?
Sandy Grunfeld, and good to see you. Yeah, I see. And we want to wish at the get-go of the Shir Mazel Tov to Shalom Fogel on becoming a Zayda. Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov.
Thank you. Simchas for everybody.
Yeah, we should have more simchas over here. That's what we need. Okay, and we welcome in over here Saba and Reb Kramer and Reb Erish Gesseman joining us. David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon, as we dedicated by Baruch Ian Lila Nishmas Estabas Yona Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba Abraham and Shmuel HaKoyin, and Lefur Shalema for Baruch Shalema Ben Lima, who is looking Baruch Hashem very good. We learned by Aaron Swade for Chana Bas Shmuel and Freda Bas Shol, by Mark Frankel, Lefur Shalema for Chana Bas Gittel Esther, Miriam Sar Bas Sipar, Be'er Goldwasser, for Akar Satayv, for what Hashem did for his family and for the Chayli Yisrael, for my Shver Avigdor ben Rivka, Yudah Cyril Bas Miriam, and Meir ben Chai Yisrael should have a Rafur Shalema B'Sech Shar Chayli Yisrael. We also learned for the Yidden Eretz Yisrael, hostages should be recovered, the soldiers should be safe, and all of Klal Yisrael should be safe. We are holding on the bottom of Daf Samach Beis Amud Beis, the bottom of Daf Samach Beis Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Abaya, Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov, Rebbe, and Rebbe Meir, a very, very great trio. Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov, Rebbeinu HaKadosh, and Rebbe Meir, Kulu Svirulu, they all hold of, to some extent, it's not the same, but they all hold to some extent that Adam Makna Davish Bala, that a person could transfer even something that was not fully in the world. As the Gemara tells us, as we welcome in, joining us, Reb Pesach Siegelman. It's great to have you, Pesach. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov Hadamran. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov, who said that a person can separate truma from something that is not yet fully grown. It's only shachas. It's only animal food, and it's still attached to the ground. But Dr. Block could say that it should be truma for it when it grows a third and when it gets attached from the ground. Rabbi the Tanya, he says, Lo saskir eved el adonov. There's a knas that if a master, that the Torah says that you should not return a servant to his master, and Rabbi Eimer, this is talking about B'loikeach eved al manas l'shachar yakasa medaber. Let's say, who would do such a thing? Marshall buys Tony, an Eved Kanani, on the condition that he will free him. Now, the din is, Heichi Dami, what's the case? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak kigayin d'chsivlei, he says to him, Likisha akracha, when I buy you, hari atzmacha koni loch me achshav. You should be freed from now. And the Torah says that such an Eved, you're not allowed to return to its master. He remains free. So here, this is an element of a Davar Shaloi Bala Olam, because Marshall is saying this even before he purchased the Eved. And before he purchased the Eved, he's making a condition that when I buy you, so it's yet a Davar Shaloi Bala Olam, that when I buy you, I will free you, and we say that that's binding. Rebbe Meir, what's a case of Rebbe Meir? Rebbe Meir holds an Adam is makna Davar Shaloi Bala Olam. The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, you should be betrothed to me la'achashis gayer after I convert, or la'achashis gayer after you convert, la'achashis tachrer after I am freed, la'achashis tachri after you're freed, la'achashis yamas balech after your husband dies, la'achashis tamei sachoisech after my wife, your sister, dies, la'achashis yachletzach yavamech, or after your Yavam gives you chalitza, freeing you to marry. Ain't a Mekudeshes. Rameir, I'm a Mekudeshes. Rameir says Mekudeshes. So you see, Rameir says that you could make a chalais on a Davar Shaloi Bala Olam. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, I'm a ain't a Mekudeshes. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says, no, doesn't work. Unless you have control over it, like we learned yesterday, you can't make a chalais on something that's not within, that's not in the world. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, I'm a Mekudeshes. He says that it does work, except for two of the cases. Except where he says, after your husband dies, or after my wife, your sister dies. Umatam Omru Eina Mekudeshes, in those two cases, Mishum Eva, because of hatred, because that would cause enmity with the husband if he says, after your husband dies, or it would cause enmity with his wife if he says, after my wife dies, I'll marry you. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says Mekudeshes, so that means Rabbi Yehuda Nasi also holds you could make a chalois on something Shaloi Bala Olam. So why don't we count as the four Rabbi Yehuda Nasi? Says the Gemara, V'nachshav Nami Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, as we welcome in Avram Shenkman. Avram, it's a pleasure to have you. Says the Gemara, Hainu Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Says the Gemara, and by way of answer, that Rebbe is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and we already counted Rebbe. Says the Gemara, V'nachshav Nami Rabbi Akiva. But why don't we count Rabbi Akiva? As we welcome in Shelley Zeitlin joining us for our, Shelley, you're number 26, that's a good number, and now we welcome in Gedalia Engel for our 27th Zoomer of the evening. Welcome, Gedalia. Gedalia, we are formally lodging a protest that we want you down here at the Agudas Yisrael of Fairways. We already have over here, let's see, we have 5 here tonight, so with you it would be closer to a minyan. And with Pesach Sigelman it will be 7. So we want to try to get a minyan down here, Rabbi. Say that's the aim, as we welcome in Mo Kushner joining us for our 28th Zoomer of the evening. Says the Gemara, we are holding, for those that are just joining us, we are holding 14 lines from the top of Daf Samach Gimel Amud Aleph, as Richard Rosenzweig joins us again for some reason on Facebook. I cannot figure out for what reason he would go on Facebook if he could come and join our family on Zoom. I don't understand it. V'nachshav Nami Rabbi Akiva, why don't we count in the trio? We should make it a foursome, and we should count Rabbi Akiva that he also holds you could do something on the Davar Shaloi Bala Olam. The Tanya, for we learned, let's say Marshall married to Sprinza, Sprinza, who has been having problems with Marshall of late. He's going to too many hockey games. So and he's been smelling from old Franks and bourbon. So she says to Marshall, "Kainim she'ani osa lepicha." It should be forbidden to you. Kainim is, of course, a slang for carbon. it should be forbidden to you like a carbon, that which I make to your mouth. So the Gemara says, Ein tzarich la'afer. Marshal doesn't have to annul it. A husband could annul the vows of his wife. Marshal doesn't have to annul it. Why? Because since her salary belongs to him, she has no right to aser it. Rabbi Akiva says he should annul it because he's only entitled to a certain amount. And Shema Tadif olav yesem in a royla. She might make more money. After all, she makes more money than a car salesman or car repairman. So she might make more money than he's entitled to. So he should annul it, that it shouldn't become forbidden. But since the money is not yet made, she's asking a davar shalei b'laylam. So the Chayra of Kiva holds that you could ask a davar shalei b'laylam. So the Gemara says no. Where she says my hands should be dedicated to their Creator. She puts the whammy on her hands. And v'yadayim isnu b'olam. Her hands are here in the world. Okay, with 29 Zoomers just getting underway on this beautiful Sunday evening as we start. Remember, today was Asiri B'Kodesh. Today, Sunday, was Asiri B'Kodesh. And we pointed out that if you count 10 days from the day after Yom Kippur, and you circle it in your calendar every 10th day, you make it a special day with extra holiness, with extra stucca, extra learning, extra meditation. That's called Asiri B'Kodesh. It's an ancient minig, and it's a very beautiful incentive. Shelley's been doing it for years. Shelley, you did the article?
Not yet. It'll be a late night.
Okay.
Happy Wednesday, Shelley.
You took care of that other thing also, not yet?
That's set up.
Oh, that's set up. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. I think it's well worth to look into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and I'm glad to say that I did get a new sponsor from Cincinnati. A new sponsor, so my haranguing is paying off a little bit. A new sponsor and a new subscriber from Cincinnati. We're looking for a second sponsor for this week. We try to get two sponsors every week, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Now, says the Mishnah, Ha'omer le'isha, hariat mikudeshes li almanasha adaber alecha l'shiltain. He says to a woman, you should be betrothed to me on the condition that I will speak on your behalf to the ruler. Or ve'esa imcha kapayel, I will do work for you like a worker. So, Diber alel l'shilton, if he spoke on our behalf to the ruler, ve'asa imcha kapayel, or he worked like a workman, mikudeshes. V'im lab, but if not, ain't mikudeshes. Now, Reish Lakish has a very interesting insight into the Mishnah. Reish Lakish says, these are conditions. This is not what he gives as the Kiddushin. He says we should be Mekadeshes on the condition that I talk on your behalf. But he also has to give her a pruta. Says the Gemara, but with the work that he does not, if he says you should be Mekadeshes to me with the payment, with the savings that I rode you on a donkey, or shafticha b'kroinoi b'svina, or I got you a seat in a wagon or in a boat, ain't a Mekadeshes. Why? Because that was done already. And even if she owed him money, that's being Mekadesh b'milva. And we said Mekadesh with foregoing a debt is not Mekadeshes. B'schar she'arkivcha ala chamar, with the service that I will ride you on a donkey. I'll get you a seat in a wagon or a cabin in a boat. Mekudeshes. Now, there also it's talking about where he gave her also a shava pruta, but he says clearly it's in return for having done this for you. He says it clearly, b'schar, in return for the fact that I'm doing this with you. And obviously there's no pruta. It says b'schar kama, and furthermore, Tanya, shev'i mi b'tzavtza v'akadesh lach. If she says to him, sit with me in companionship, I'm lonely. If you'll join me as my companion for this dinner, I'll be mekudeshes to you. Schayk lefanai, or make jokes for me. Rekaid lefanai, or dance for me. Or asa kedimas hazeh, make me like this building or like this monument. Shaman. Im yesh b'yishava pruta mekudeshes, if there's a value of a pruta mekudeshes, v'mlav eina mekudeshes. V'chitei ma'achanami b'diyodla shava pruta, he gave her also besides a pruta, v'shamana yisai kama. Says evaluate. So to yufta the Reish Lakish, that seems to be a refutation of Reish Lakish. Amalach Reish Lakish. No. Hai tana bra savar eina l'schiris ela l'b'sayf. That payment for what's done is only at the end. And therefore, since payment is done is only at the end, so when it's done, that's when it's due. It's not a debt. And therefore, it's a good Kiddushin. The Tana di dan sava, the Tana of our Mishnah holds, yeshna l'schiris mitchila v'atzayf, that there is schiris from beginning to end. So therefore, even when it's done now, it became a debt, since it's payable all throughout, and therefore by the time that it's finished and the Kiddushin is chal, it's already a debt. So the Gemara says, and therefore you have to learn that she also gave upruta, ubediyavla. Amar Rava, so Rava says, Masnisan kashise. My area the Tani almanas. Why does it say on the condition? Nisnei b'schar, let it say for the service. Elishmamina kol almanas, where she says a case of almanas, that you do this, it wouldn't work, because by the time it's finished being done, since yeshna l'schiris mitchilat saif, it would be a milva. Rather, it must be heicha diyav lahu. You have to give a pruta. Now, says the Mishnah, Almanash yirtza abba. He says on the condition that my father consents. Now we'll see. The Gemara is going to debate whether this means on the condition that my father is quiet, he doesn't protest, or he consents. Or is it within a time frame of 30 days? We'll see. The Gemara is going to discuss this. So, Almanashi Yitzhab, if he says on the condition that my father wants it, Ratza of Mikadeshes. If the father wants it, it's Mikadeshes. V'imlav, if the father says, nah, you could do better, ain't Mikadeshes. Mesa of, if the father dies, so he protests not because he's dead, Harizu Mikadeshes. Mesa ben, if the would-be chassan dies, so now we don't want her to have to fall liyibam. So malamdin ha'av loimer she'ena raitza. We train the father to say, I don't want it. So therefore that makes it that there's no marriage, and therefore she won't have to fall to the brother for yibam or chalitza. Now the Gemara tries to define what exactly it means, sheyirtza of. My almanas sheyirtza abba. What does it mean on the condition that my father wants it? Ilema ad amar abba in that they're not married mekudeshes until the father says yes. He has to say yes. Ema mitziyasa mesa of arizum mekudeshes. If the father dies, it's mekudeshes. But he didn't say yes. V'alay amar in. So it can't be that it's only if he says his confirmation. It can't be only if he says yes. Ella, as we turn the page, it's nice to turn the page after only 20 minutes. Ella almanas sheyishtoik abba. When it says that the father consents, it means that he's silent. He doesn't protest. Ema seifa meisa ben. If the son dies, malamdenes of leimish eina roitza. We train the father to say, I don't want it. But he already was quiet. So what does it help that now he says, I don't want it? He was already quiet and they were already engaged and she should have to have yibam. Amai v'hoshosik. Ella, it must be that in the Sefer, Amala almanash shelo yimcha abba, is where he said on the condition that my father doesn't protest. But if he protests, even if he protests later, all bets are off. It's not a good condition. So the Gemara says, Reisha b'chad taima, the Reisha that says, where the father said, Reisha b'chad taima, because in the umitziyasa v'seifa b'chad taima, because in the case of the Reisha, the first case is that Amanash Yirtz Abba is that he's quiet. And now, at the end of the Mishnah, you're saying that it means if the father doesn't protest. So, Amar Rabbi Yana in. Yes, that's true. That the Reisha is talking about where he's quiet. No. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. You see, there's a very tricky thing that going on over here. In the last case of the Mishnah, where it says that if the chassan dies, the father could protest. So that means that case is that we're mekudeshes if my father doesn't issue a protest. That means any time that he issues a protest, the Kiddushin is off. So therefore, if the chassan dies, we have the father issue a protest, and that nullifies the Kiddushin. The Reisha that says that if the father consents, they're engaged. That we interpret it to mean if the father is quiet, they're immediately engaged. If it would be true, then in the Reisha it's talking about if the father doesn't issue a protest, then the Reisha wouldn't be able to say that if the father consents, if he's quiet, they're mekudeshes, because maybe later he's going to protest. So therefore, the Gemara says that the Sefer is talking about a different case than the Reisha. Says the Gemara, Reisha b'chad taima, the first case of the Mishnah, which says that if the father consents, meaning that he's quiet, then Mekudeshes, that means that there he didn't stipulate, if my father protests, it's no good. Because if he stipulated that, then the fact that the father was quiet doesn't mean that Mekudeshes, because maybe 5 days later he'll protest. The end of the Mishnah is talking about where he said, we're at Mekudeshes only if my father doesn't protest. And therefore, if he dies, we get the father to protest in order to nullify the Kiddushin. Rabbi Yanayin? Yeah, Rabbi Yana says, the Reisha and the Sefer are talking about two different cases. Now, we could have learned differently. We could have learned that there's a machlokes between the Reisha and the Sefer. It's two different opinions. That's another way we could have explained it. We could have said that the Mishnah is talking about on the condition that my father gives his approval. And that one Tana holds that as soon as the father is silent, they're Mekudeshes. That Tana at the end of the Mishnah means that the father could protest even later. So it could be two different opinions of what it means if my father's consents. So the Gemara says, Shmami no de Rabyanai dakino no mukmina masnisim betray taima. We'd rather say that the Mishnah is talking about two different cases, va'aliba dechad tana, according to one opinion, v'loy mukmina betray tanoi, rather than saying it's two opinions, or bechad taima, in one case, because we could have opted to say it's talking about the same case. The father, he said, where Mekudeshes of my father consents. The Tanakama holds that once the father is quiet, that's enough, while the Sefer says, no, the father has the option to protest later. Rabbi Yossi Bar Ami says, no, this is too complicated. Loilam chad taimahu. It's one case. He said, we should be Mekudeshes if your father doesn't protest within 30 days. So in the Reisha, where the father didn't protest within 30 days, they're Mekudeshes. The Sefer is talking about where the chassan died before 30 days. So therefore, we train him to protest before the 30 days is up. Says the Gemara, let's see it inside. Rabbi Yossi Bar Ami Yom Aloylam Chad Taimu. It's one case. Umay al Menashe Yirtza Abba. What does it mean on the condition my father consents? Al Menashe lo yimcha Abba mikan v'ad shleishim yom. That he doesn't protest within 30 days. So therefore, in the Reisha, when it says if the father consents, it's Mekudeshes, that means that that means that 30 days passed and he didn't protest. Where it says if the father dies, says Mekudeshes, because since he didn't protest before he died, he's not protesting anymore. The Sefer is talking about where the chassan died, and the would-be chassan died, and it was within 30 days. So we trained the father then to protest in order that the Kiddushin shouldn't be chal, in order that they shouldn't fall for Yibam and Chalitza. That was a little bit of a tricky Gemara, if anybody has any questions. Now, I hate to do this to you. Could you bring me a cup of water? I'm bothering Barish to bring me a cup of water. While I bother Barish, I will tell you that I am furthering my activity of loading up YouTube. I put today a shir of from Noach, from Rabbi Landau, Shul 5777. That's a golden oldie. I also put a shir that I gave in the Aguda, in Aguda of Staten Island, Matzah Shabbos learning program, called Noach and the Good Times. So those are both on YouTube, and if you check out my YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe and spread it around. We neglected to say a kapitel of Tillim, so let's do that for the Yidden and Eretz Yisrael. Shilam Allah says, Einai Elohim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri, Ezri Me'yim Adonai, Yosei Shemayim V'oretz, Al Yitein Lamoit Raglecha, Al Yonum Shemerecha, Hinei Lo Yonum V'lo Yishan Shemer Yisrael, Adonai Shemerecha, Adonai Tzilcha Al Yad Yeminecha, Yomi Mashemesh lo yakeka v'yoreach b'alayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitzko v'yecha mi'ata v'yad olam. Achenu kol beis Yisrael anesinu b'tzara v'shivyoim bein b'yabasha. Hamokim yirachem aleihem v'yotzihem mitzor levachem efeilu loyra mishibet l'gula. Hashtav ha'gola v'zman kariv v'noimar amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niya b'dvaro.
Amen.
Kidashti es biti. Here, this is some character. Really.
Be Yitzi, right?
So, just pulling out a name from the hat. Marshall says, Marshall says, I was Mekadesh my daughter, ve'eni yoidea lemi kidashtiha, and I don't know to whom. Uba achar v'amani kidashtiha, and what happened is Nachman comes along and said, I was Mekadesh her, Neman, he's believed. What about if there's two characters? Nachman says he was Mekadesh. And then Mordechai says I was Mekadesh. Now what do we do? And of course Marshall is clueless, right? He was drinking bourbon that day. Where do you think 6 bottles of bourbon went? Right? He was drinking bourbon that day. So what do? Obviously, neither of them could marry her because it might be the other one. So Shneim Noisnin get. They both give a get. But Imaratzu, if they want, Echad Noisin get. Mordechai could give a get, and then Ve'echad Kainis, then Nachman could marry her. Amar Rav. Rav says, Nemon Litain get. In the event that Nachman comes around and says, it was me, he's trusted to give her a get, and then afterwards she could marry, but ve'ein nemon lichnois. But he can't marry her. Nemon litin get, why? Because what benefit would he have to lie just to give her a divorce? Ein adam chayte v'loy loy. He's not going to sin if he doesn't get anything out of it. The ein nemon lichnois, because Maisa is, Marshall's daughter, surprisingly, is very pretty. Right? So, maybe Nachman's Yaitza got the better of him. Rav Asi says no. Af nemon lichnos. Rav Asi says he's even believed to take her. We trust him. Umayda Rav Asi, but Rav Asi is Mayda if it wasn't Marshall who said, I was Mekadesh my daughter. It was Marshall's daughter. Chip off the old block. She said, Niskadashti, I accepted Kiddushin from somebody, ve'eni yodas l'mi niskadashti. But I don't know to whom. Could you imagine that?
Is they changing the case?
Yeah, different case. Here it's Marshall's daughter who says, I accepted Kiddushin on my own behalf, but it was dark, and I don't know exactly who. Anything is better than Frankfurters, so I accepted it, but I don't know to who. And then Nachman said that it was me, then she'ein nemon lichnos. Then he's not believed to take her. Why? Because we say that maybe he's not afraid, she'll like him, and she'll cover up for him. For Marshall, he'll be afraid. But her, he's not afraid. She'll cover up for him. So Tanan, the Gemara asks, how could Rav say that Nachman is only believed to give a get, but not to marry her? We said if it was two of them, Nachman and Mordechai, so we said if you want, Tanan, Ratza echad noisin get ve'echad kaines. If we want, Mordechai could give a get, and Nachman could marry her. So you see, we trust Nachman even to marry her. So to Yufta the Rav, so Rav says, no. Over there it's different, because since Mordechai is involved, Nachman would be afraid to say it was me, because he would be afraid to be unmasked, because Mordechai might have been the real one. So therefore, that's why Nachman is more believable. Amalach Rav, Shani Hossam, came in the Ika Akabade, since Mordechai is standing there also, is Susei Mirsas. He would be afraid just to say it was me. If there's nobody, so then he could say it was me. What's he afraid of? Marshall. Marshall is in a perpetual daze. Right? So, Tanya Kavasi de Ravasi, we have a raya like Ravasi. Kidashti esbiti. Marshall says, I betrothed my daughter. Any idea me kidashtia? Oh, kidashtia. And Nachman came and said it was me. Afnem on lichnois. He's believed to even marry her. Konsa, if Nachman does marry her, and then after Nachman marries her, then Mordechai comes and says it was me. Too late. He's not believed to disqualify her from Nachman. Like koleimena la'asra alav. Ha'isha she'amra niskadashti. But if Marshall's daughter said, I accepted Kiddushin on my behalf, ve'en yoidas l'mi niskadashti, and she's also a bubblehead, she says, I don't know to whom I was mikudeshes. And Nachman says it was me. Why? Because she'll cover for him. She'll like him and she'll cover for him. So therefore, he would be afraid to say it with Marshall, because Marshall will say, hey, you liar, it wasn't you. But he'll charm Marshall's daughter, and therefore, we don't give Nachman the credibility, and we don't allow her to marry her. Oh, now, Marshall, do you have a daughter?
Two of them.
Okay.
They're gonna get you for this.
Okay, so we don't want to do this to Marshall's daughters. So this is only a fictitious case. Till now, it could have happened, but now it's only fictitious. Because
Names were changed to protect the innocent.
Because Marshall's daughter's name is Sprinzy. And the question is, if Sprinzy, if in the event that Marshall says, I was Mekadesh Sprinzy, I don't remember to who, and then she sleeps with someone, do we stone her for adultery? In a case where Nachman doesn't come forward. In a case Marshall just said, I was Mekadesh my daughter, and I don't know to who, and she went ahead and slept with somebody. Now, it might not be the right man, right? Because... so according to Marshall, she's an Ashes Ish. And therefore what she did was adultery. So Ma'u Liskal al Yadai, do we stone her? So Rav Amar ain't cycling. Rav says we don't stone her. Rav Asi Amar cycling, we stone her. Rav Amar ain't cycling. Kihem ne Rachman of, when the father gave believability to the, when we gave believability to the father, that's Lisura, to make her usr. L'kitala lo yemnua. But that she should get capital punishment, we don't. Rav Asi Amar l'kulam ilsem ne Rachman alav. No, the Torah believes him. He's credible. He's incredible, but he's credible, and therefore we stone her. Amar Rav Asi umodina. However, I agree that if she said she accepted Kiddushin, by meris niskadashti, that I accepted Kiddushin on my behalf, and then she slept with someone, that there she ain't cycling. The fact that she said that she accepted Kiddushin, and now she slept with someone, we don't stone her on her own say-so. Now, Rav Asi says, really what I say, if I don't give you an explanation, really what I say is kind of incredible. And this is where we get the saying in the Beis Medrash of Marafs and Igra, that this statement is so incredible, it like rips off the roof. Amar Rav Asi, Hani Shmaitza Didi, this teaching of mine would seem to be Marafs on Igre. Without an explanation, it seemed to be mind-boggling. It would seem not to make sense. Because hashta, if in the case where a man comes and says that I'm the one that accepted, I'm the one that Marshall accepted Kiddushin, we allow Nachman to marry her, so that means that the Isser created by Marshall is not so strong that we should worry maybe it's someone else. Omrit Cyclin, we say that in the event that she sleeps with somebody after Marshall accepted Kiddushin, we stone her. Malkam Shim Balichnois Ein Kainis. In a case by her, where we said that if she said I accepted Kiddushin, and Nachman said it was me, we don't let her marry Nachman, which seems to be that she created a greater Isser Eishes, and therefore we're afraid that maybe Nachman is not the one. Einoi Dinsha Cyclin, shouldn't we surely stone her if she sleeps with somebody else? V'loihi, it's not so. La'av Hemnei Rachman. The Torah gave more believability, more credibility to the father. L'dida loy hemna. She's not believed as much. The reason why she's usher is because Shavya Nafsha Chaticha D'Yisura. She made herself usher by saying, but we don't give her that much credibility, and therefore, since we don't give her that much credibility, she's not stoned. So then you'll say, why, if Nachman comes along and says it was me, why don't we allow her to marry him? That's for a different reason. It's not because she creates a bigger Isser Eishes Ish. It's because we're afraid that Nachman is not afraid that she'll expose him, because since he's such a catch, she'll cover for him. Marshall won't cover. Okay, we'll stop over here because Rav Chisda is a sugya that goes on till tomorrow night.